Hello, everybody. My name is Christine Phillips, and today's Generosity Roundtable is on saving and spending. The goal with saving money is to have financial security in order to remain out of debt and have the freedom to give generously. In today's talk, we're going to talk about two different categories of savings, short-term and long-term. We're then going to talk about how to prioritize our spending so we can save some money. And then we're going to talk about hits and hacks. These are hits to our budget and some hacks that I've learned and that I've learned from other people that we can use in order to minimize those hits. So first, let's talk about short-term and long-term savings. So short-term savings, as the term suggests, are money that you may need within a short period of time. Now, this is money that you should keep fairly liquid, and what that means is you keep it fairly available, either in your bank savings account or in a money market account. And a money market account is simply like a savings account with check writing capabilities. The two different types of short-term savings we're going to talk about today are emergency savings and targeted savings. The next category is long-term. And this is money that is typically invested like in mutual funds or stocks, and it's intended more for the future, like retirement, your children's education, and here I'm talking about college or trade school, or healthcare. And we'll get into these topics in a little bit more detail. So first is your emergency fund. Emergency fund is saving up about 3 to 6 months of your expenses, and the purpose of this fund is to pay for emergencies. It's also to prevent debt. The whole idea is you do not want to go into debt when an emergency arises. This should be your first priority when your savings plan. Now, something to note, credit cards or home equity lines of credit should not be used for emergencies, because these are forms of debt. And the whole idea of saving money is we want to feel secure and not feel like we have to go into a debt if an emergency arises. So what would constitute an emergency? A car or truck breaking down, water heater blowing up, heater or air conditioner not working, roof leaking, or losing your job. So the losing your job one is where the 3 to 6 months of expenses come into play. It's probably the biggest emergency from a cost standpoint that you can encounter. And the idea is you want to be able to live off your savings while you're finding another job. Now, right now, we are in a situation where a lot of people are losing their jobs due to COVID-19. If you don't have a savings plan in place, we will talk a little bit later about how you can basically minimize your expenses as you navigate that. Whether you choose 3 months of expenses to save or 6 months of expenses or anywhere in between is actually very personal. So it depends on if you're the sole income provider in your family, you may be able to go with a little bit less of an emergency fund, like a 3-month emergency fund. If you are the sole provider of your family, then you may want to go longer. It also may depend on how quickly you think you can find another job if you lose yours. What's the market in the area? Another thing to consider is how risk adverse are you? Some people are a little bit more risky and they feel like they can get away with less, where some like that extra security of having a larger emergency fund. So this is really a very personal decision as to how much you save for this particular fund. So next is targeted savings. This is money that you're saving for a specific goal. And this could be to replace your car, to buy a new refrigerator or other appliance, or doing home improvements around your home. This could also be where you're saving for that big vacation or something of that nature. So it's saving for something very specific. And you're probably thinking, pay cash for a car? Really? Yes, you can pay cash for a car. The average monthly payment for a brand new car is $523 per month. If instead of paying that on your car debt, you actually saved that for 2 years, you would have saved $12,552 to purchase a pretty nice new to you car. And so this isn't a brand new car, but this is purchasing a used car. A lot of small SUVs, you can buy a one that's just a few years old with low mileage for about this amount of money, for about $12,000. This is a better value than buying a brand new car, which depreciates in value very quickly as it drives off the lot. Next is long-term savings. So we're not going to get into a whole lot of detail on retirement funds. Next month's Generosity Roundtable will get into more detail on that. But I wanted to touch on some of the two most prevalent funds out there, and that's a 401k and a 403b. They really operate the same way. These are funds that employers use in order to, as a benefit to employees to help save money. 401k is usually for for-profit corporations or private corporations, and 403b is typically used for nonprofit. Those numbers really just reference the tax code from which they come from, and as I mentioned, they operate the same way. The idea is that your employer will take a certain percentage dictated by you out of your paycheck every pay period and put it into a 401k or 403b fund, which is invested in mutual funds to save for retirement. Now, some companies will actually match a certain percentage. They'll also contribute to your fund. So for instance, if you contribute 3%, they may contribute half of that. They may contribute 1.5% of your salary on top of that. So in other words, it doesn't come out of your salary then. The idea is that this will actually reduce your taxable income. So it actually has some tax benefits. Now, for your children's education, there are a couple different types of funds. One is called an educational savings account. This is a federal fund where you can save up to $2,000 per year per child. And again, that gets invested in mutual funds to save for your children's college or an approved trade school for them to be able to invest in their future. This money will grow tax-free. So that means when your child reaches a certain age and is in college or in the trade school, if you use it to pay for qualified expenses, you will not pay taxes on the money you pull out of these accounts. A 529 fund is similar to an ESA, but this one's managed by the state. There's no limit on the yearly contributions, at least not in Virginia. Each state is a little bit differently, operates a little differently, but you can go to your state government website and find out more about a 529 fund for Virginia or whatever state you live in. So next is health savings accounts. This is something that is fairly new. You are eligible to put money into an HSA if you have a high deductible health plan. So these accounts came about with Obamacare. Your contribution limits are $3,550 for an individual, or you can contribute up to $7,100 for a family in the course of a year. These are funds that you can use for qualified health expenses. One thing that's different about a health savings account than the traditional flexible savings account, something is that these funds carry over from year to year, and the account is yours. So if you leave your employer for any reason, you bring the account with you and the money as well, which is beneficial. A lot of people are using health savings plans as part of their retirement savings plan. So we will talk a little bit more about HSAs in next month's Generosity Roundtable. So what are our priorities as far as spending and saving? Well, your first priority is to pay off all your debt. If you remember, their goal with saving is to be financially secure and to stay out of debt. So your first step should be paying off all your debts. Your second step in your saving priority should be saving up your emergency fund. This is something you should do fairly quickly. General rule of thumb is try to free up enough money in your budget to save your emergency fund within a year or two. That way you have that security in order to be able to save for the long term. Then you can focus on your long-term savings. Good rule of thumb is to then dedicate about 15% of your salary to put into a retirement or health savings account. Again, this is your retirement planning, to put about 15% of your salary towards that goal. Once you've accomplished that, you can then set money aside to put for your child's college. So this is kind of the priority order of how you should be saving money for now and for the future. You're probably asking how. You're saying, Christine, you're saying free up money. How in the world do we do that? How do we have money left over at the end of the month in order to save money? Well, the whole idea is you want to plan. You want to use a budget. So here I have an example budget, and a budget is just that. It is an intentional plan that you do at the beginning of the month so you can plan out how you are spending your money. A lot of times what we do is at the end of the month we look back and we say, where did our money go? That is not that's not proactive, and when we handle our money that way, then we're never going to be able to see where we can free up some expenses, some spending, areas of spending, to be able to save some money. So here is an example budget. Here over on the left, we have our income with a net salary, and so this is your take-home pay of $3,500. And then over on the right, here is our expenses. So we have a mortgage, giving, so I just listed out, I'm not going to read all these, of some typical expenses you may see in your budget. So these are things that we spend on. A balanced budget is one where your income and your expenses are equal. So if you take your income, you subtract your expenses, it should be 0. So now what I'd like to do is be able to look through our budget to see how we can make changes to our budget in order to save money. So in other words, we're going to prioritize our spending so that we can have some money set aside for saving. So first thing to look at is eating out. $200 a month I put in eating out, because if you do eat out every day for lunch, which a lot of people do, chances are you're spending anywhere from $200 to $300 a month on eating out. And if you decide to no longer do that, then you can actually free up $200 a month towards your savings goals. So normally, if you're writing out your budget, you would want to add another line item that talks about that actually shows that you're saving and what goal you're saving for in your expense column. So that way your income and your expenses will still equal out. For this presentation, I'm just going to put it off to the side in big red text just to make it clear. Another thing you can do to prioritize spending is maybe cancel cable. That will free up another $150 a month, or a total of $350 to put towards your savings goals. So this gives you an idea as you go through your expenses on how you can prioritize. Now, for those who are out there are struggling right now, maybe they have a reduced income or you've lost your income because of COVID-19. What I want to ask you to do is, when you're listing out your expenses, consider the 4 walls. So what does that mean? The 4 walls mean that you are focusing on your mortgage. So your housing is first here. Okay, that is part of the 4 walls. You want to focus on utilities. You want to be comfortable. You want to be able to pay for your for your gas and for heat and for electricity in your home. That's what keeps you safe and secure. You want to focus on groceries. So you want to be able to eat and be healthy, and you want to focus on transportation. Now, actually, right now, your transportation you may be able to minimize. So you'll have to keep up with your auto insurance, but gasoline prices are dropping, so that budget item may be able to drop. I know ours dropped significantly for two reasons. One, we're just driving to work and home right now, and I say we, my husband and I, we're not really going anywhere else. But two, the gas prices have dropped, so you may be able to drop that. So if you're in a difficult situation, those are the line items that you should focus on, and then the rest really is, you can clear out. Heck, right now, hair salons are closed. That's something that can go away as well in your budget. So now is actually a really good time to either focus on saving money or adjusting your budget so that way you can be able to survive this storm. Another way that you can save money is increase your income. Side gigs are really popular right now. In the past, these are still valid, really. Something as simple as doing pizza delivery, or right now, if you want, you can go get a part-time job at Kroger. They're hiring to earn a little bit of extra money. It doesn't take much to earn about an extra $500 a month that you can put towards your savings goals. What's really nice in today's day and age is there's a lot of other things that you can do electronically that people are doing, either telecommuting with a little side job, or you make money on the internet with a blog or with some sort of a service that you can provide, social media. With all those things, side gigs are becoming more and more prevalent, and I'm not going to say easy to obtain because it still takes quite a bit of work. But if you have some sort of passion that you want to market online, chances are you can earn a few extra bucks in doing so. So now we're going to get into kind of a fun section called hits and hacks. So these are ones that either I use or I've learned from other people that are useful. We're going to talk about some hacks to our budget. Some of them we've already may have discussed. I'm sorry, some hits to your budget and some hacks you can use to help reduce that spending and be able to save or give more. So one hit, believe it or not, is your mortgage. That's probably one of your biggest expenses. One good rule of thumb is to try to make this about 25% of your monthly income. So if you remember, our income in our budget example was $3,500 and our mortgage was $1,000 a month. So that's a little over the 25% rule, but still very attainable. I used $1,000 for a mortgage because that is actually the average mortgage payment per month in the United States. So what is our hack? Sorry. Our hack, sorry about that, is you can either purchase a smaller home. We actually live in an area here in the Roanoke Valley that housing is very affordable, or rent. Some people think that, oh, we can't rent, we have to own. Well, fact of the matter is home ownership actually has a lot of hidden expenses, like maintaining and repairing your home can add up. A lot of times when you rent, that is included in your rent, not always, but a lot of times. And real estate taxes. I mean, that is something that is that you have to pay when you own a home. That can add up as well. So sometimes in order to save a lot of money, and it's just for a season, people will rent. And again, in this area, you can actually find places to rent that are very, very affordable. Next hit is food. We talked about that. So eating out can add up very, very quickly. So what are some hacks we can use in order to minimize that? Well, for lunches, brown bag it. It sounds boring, but a loaf of bread and some cold cuts or peanut butter and jelly is pretty reasonable from a grocery standpoint to be able to eat your lunches. Another thing is to be creative with leftovers. For instance, this is something that my husband and I actually enjoy, trying to be creative with leftovers. If we have some sort of large steak for our Sunday night meal and we have leftovers, just the two of us, sometimes we will make a steak salad for our next meal in order to eat those leftovers. Or we'll buy peppers and onions and saute them up with the meat and make some sort of a burrito. Salads and burritos you can do with just about any leftovers. Although I wonder how a meatloaf burrito would taste. That'd probably be a little weird. But anyway, you get the idea. Another thing that a lot of families do in order to kind of get a break from cooking and have some fun time with the kids is find the kids eat free deals. Now, if you have a family, have kids, and you know of some good kids eat free deals in the area, put them in the comments below. I don't have children, so I'm not really sure what those deals are, but I know they do exist. So if you have some fun kids eat free deals, please share them with us in the comments below. Another hit are household cleaners and detergents. These get expensive. So what's the alternative? Actually, you can make your own. Things like vinegar, baking soda are good staples to have in your house in order to make your own cleaners. One of my favorites is soft scrub. You can actually make soft scrub with about 1/4 cup of baking soda, and you add enough liquid detergent or soap to make it about the consistency of toothpaste. Or if you use soft scrub, you kind of have an idea of what that consistency is. And I use this a lot to kind of scrub out our sinks or our tub or shower where soap scum can get kind of on there. The soft scrub does a really good job of getting that out. So that is one recipe. If you have a favorite household cleaner or detergent recipe, put it in the comments below so we can learn some other ways that we can make some very effective household cleaners to clean our home. Another hit, cable TV. I think everybody knows that cable is expensive, and many people, when they are working on their budget, will cancel it. When we started putting our budget together, that was one of the first things that went, and we've never gotten it back. We actually learned we don't miss it. So try a subscription service like Hulu or Amazon Prime or Netflix. But you need to be careful with subscription services. And the reason I say that is some of them, like if you have a lot of them, it can add up. Netflix, $7.99 a month. It seems affordable, but if you have that and Hulu and a whole bunch of other subscription services, that can add up and be a pretty good hit on your budget in itself. So you just have to be careful with those. Another idea is you can get an antenna. Believe it or not, with a good antenna in the Roanoke Valley, you can get 50+ stations. Because not only do you get the City of Roanoke local stations, but depending on where you live, you can get the Lynchburg stations as well. So you can really get some good channels just from investing in an antenna. Another hit is the movie theater. That's expensive, and you get popcorn and drinks. That could be a big hit to your budget. Fun to do every once in a while for those big screen things, like the Avengers movies that are really good on the big screen, I do have to admit. But it can be a big hit to the budget. One hack that people aren't aware of is you can get many movies for free from your local library. Now, I understand right now the libraries are closed, but this is something to keep in mind, that your local library keeps a pretty good inventory of movies and even TV shows that you can borrow for free with your library card. So what are some of your hits and hacks? I'd like to hear from you. Now, this is called a Generosity Roundtable, and the whole idea is normally we're doing this live, and we're able to discuss and share other ideas on how to save, spend, and prioritize our funds. So if you have any questions or if you have any other hits and hacks to share, please share them in the comments below, and I will try to answer them as soon as I can. A lot of the hits and hacks are shared. I actually update this presentation periodically, and I add them to the presentation. So I would love your input. Thank you very much for listening, and have a wonderful day.